And you know what? As much as you try to convince me that you looked at the credentials, you looked at the work you did, you looked at the candidate, you looked at all of that, you had made your decision in 5 seconds of that interaction. It was the second they opened their mouth, or they looked at you, or they entered the room, you were 90% with the decision. It's instant. And it's not because you are a judgmental prick who just goes about judging people and sizing them up. No, that's exactly how the human mind works. You can't deny that. If you want to read something fascinating about the human mind, pick up this book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. It basically describes that our brain has two brains. There's a system 1 and there's a system 2. System 1 is the instant gut reaction, which is, hey, you like this? Yeah, I like this. You didn't even think about it. It's just something that you've built over time and you rely on that more and more. We call it intuition, we call it gut, you call it whatever you want, but that's system 1. And then there's a system 2, which is reflective, which is what you come up with after you've given thought, after you've deliberated, after you've sat down with it patiently, reflected upon it, and said, yeah, I may or may not agree with my instant response. We rarely do that. We wish we did it more often, but that's just the reality. Most of us, including investors, more so them, rely on system 1. And the reason is because of the same thing that they said. They are hit by pitches every single day. So imagine if you were a recruiter at a really large company, TCS, Accenture, Infosys, Wipro, so on, where you're looking at thousands of resumes every day. Would you go about reading the resume? No, you wouldn't. There's so many times when we look at that resume and the template itself is the reason why we love it or not. Because there is a natural affinity to who you are as an individual and what that document, that pitch means for you in that very moment. That's system 1. And because they're hit by so many ideas, it's not that they're sitting and only looking at an idea a day or an idea a week. They have to depend on what has systematically been built as gut intuition over time. And that will mean, in their head, the only question that's important for them: will this make money? Will this make money? Now, when you ask this question, of course, all the things that you said contribute to that. Is it a good story? Is there a sustainable solution? Is there a good problem definition in the first place or not? All of those are system 2 rationalizations that come in, which is, in their heart, they made their mind the second you walked in. But they can't say that everyone else. There is something called an IC, or an investment committee. And an investment committee is like the board of a company. So when they love somebody and they really want to make an investment in that, the partner of that firm will make a IC memo, or an investment committee memo. And that document, which is mostly 2 to 3 pages, will be shared with every other partner in the firm to get their votes, to get their feedback, to get their reactions. Now, they're not sitting in front of the founder, they're just reading that document, and more often than not, that document will rely now on system 2 thinking because there is a document. So they'll be like, oh, how big is the market? Yeah, it looks like a big market. All right, how big is the problem? Yeah, it looks like a really big problem. How elegant is the solution? Yeah, that looks like a good solution. What's the pedigree of the founder? Yeah, looks like the right schools, the right institute, the right experience, da 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 da. Okay, what have they done so far? Yeah, looks like there is traction. Is there revenue? Because that'll be a good sign. Oh, my God, there is already revenue. So they are just using everything to rationalize the instant reaction of the first person who came in and almost took that decision away. And that is why your pitch will add things to their memo which they will need to convince the world that their instant approval of this individual walking in is justified. That's human psychology. And it has nothing to do with you as a business, you as an individual, or anything else. It's just when you walked in, did you answer that question, will this make money or not? Now, there are two ways of dealing with this. One is what almost all of you are trained on. How many of you had science in class 11th and 12th? Almost all of you. I am in a science conference in an event, so I get that. Here's the challenge with that. And it's unfortunate, you can't do anything about it, it's not your fault, but you have to recognize that this is a challenge. You have been trained on a world which tells you that the world is 0 or 1. It's bits or bytes. The machine is either working or not. The drug either delivers or not. This is the best example of a bio example I'll use because, as I said, completely illiterate. Everything in your world has been trained to be yes or a no. That's the science of it. You either prove it or it doesn't get proved. And yeah, you may use hypothesis-driven thinking and da-da-da-da-da, but at the end of it, it's either working or not working. So our minds have been trained to think of everything as facts, figures, to prove or disprove a certain hypothesis or an approach. That's just how the scientist works. That's who all of you are. You may not be a qualified scientist, but you think like a scientist and you've certainly been trained as one. So your mind is always asking, I have a hypothesis and I have data to either prove or disprove that hypothesis. That's the way that I'll work. There is no shade of grey. There is no ambiguity. It's not like, machine ठीक ही है. या तो machine काम कर रही है या नहीं कर रही है. That's it. These are the only two end states. And what that tricks you into believing is that people also behave the same way. But that isn't true. And it's not true for all of you as well. So when you enter your scientist mind, which is when you're working, you have this view of the world that everything is 0 and 1 and only to these end states. But when you are a normal human, not to suggest that you're not when you're not working, you're behaving very differently. Very, very differently. Is there anyone who has Nike shoes here? Anybody who has a Nike? Anybody who owns any Nike wear? Okay, right? So, when you enter a Nike store, if you have, or you bought it on Myntra or wherever else it is, the beauty about Nike as a brand is that nobody walks in saying, "Isko pehen ke main kitna tez bhagooga." Nobody does. It's like nobody walks into a Mercedes showroom saying, "Kitna deti hai?" Nobody does. Nobody enters into a Royal Enfield showroom saying, "Iski servicing cost kitni hai?" Nobody does. You're actually buying it for a completely irrational reason. You're buying a Mercedes for status. You're buying a Nike because the branding has convinced you that you're an athlete, even if you're not, that you can be one. You will never do that with a Reebok. Reebok will kitne ka hai or sasta. But suddenly with a shoe like Nike, you'll be like, Nike hai. यहाँ ये चिक चिक नहीं चलती. वो कुछ और ही कर रहे हैं. अलग लीग में. You will buy a Bajaj or a Yamaha bike and you will fret over कि कितनी mileage है, कितना insurance है. But suddenly when it comes to Royal Enfield, it's like freedom. I believe in freedom. जब मैं वो बाइक चलाऊंगा मुझे ऐसा लगेगा कि हवा मेरी जिंदगी छू रही है. And that is what you care about. And that is who you are. You are a very unpredictable, emotional individual. You don't even know how you react. आप PVR पे जाएंगे वो बोलेंगे पॉपकॉर्न दीजिए और वो बोलेंगे सर लार्ज या स्मॉल एंड फिर वो आपको स्मॉल रुपए का कुछ 1 करोड़ रुपए का पकड़ा देंगे और फिर आप बोलेंगे लार्ज कितने का है बोले सर सिर्फ 1 करोड़ और 1 रुपए का अरे वाह क्या डील है लेट्स टेक लार्ज ओनली बिकॉज 10 रुपए में ही इतना बड़ा डब्बा मिल रहा है व्हाट डिड दे डू they basically anchored you to a price. They said large, small से सिर्फ 10 रुपए ज्यादा. And you didn't even think once कि small इतना महंगा ही क्यों है? You didn't. It was just intuitive, anchoring bias. And we are full of such biases. So the world does not behave in the same scientist mind as you do. The world is a shade of grey. Anybody here who had humanities in 11th and 12th? Anybody here, like the few individuals? They are the ones that you should be spending time with, frankly. आप जितना साइंटिस्ट करेंगे ना और अपने टेस्ट ट्यूब में रहेंगे उतना आप सॉरी ऐसा इलिटरेट ओके बड़ा सा होना चाहिए था यहाँ इलिटरेट स्पीकर प्लीज फॉरगिव हिम फॉर हिज रिमार्क्स जितना आप अपने लैब में घुसे रहेंगे उतना आप असली जिंदगी से दूर रहेंगे because the few individuals who had humanities were taught that nothing in this world is 0 and 1. Everything is a shade of grey. Everything is a continuum. There is no right answer, ever. It's always a probability of the right answer and what the individual feels who is working on that answer. And that's why economics is not an accurate science. It never will be. Never. And human psychology is the exact same thing. So the biggest reason why all of you even need a lesson in pitching is not because you're not working on the right idea or that you're not working with the right solution or you're not working on the right problem or that you don't know how to build a business or any of that. It's because when you enter a pitch, you completely assume that your facts and figures will make that pitch work. And that is not true. Because facts and figures get thrown at them every second of their day. They live in those facts and figures. So what they need is something that breaks the clutter, makes you stand apart. And that will come from a deep understanding of who is it that you're pitching to. Who is it that you're pitching to? And if you don't do your homework around that, it's quite unlikely that your pitch is going to leave an impression. Doesn't matter how smart you are, doesn't matter how passionate you are, doesn't matter how good a storyteller you are. You need to enter that room knowing what the size of that room is. And what I mean by that is, who's going to be your audience? What is it that they are impressed by? What is it that they want to hear? And if you tell them, as long as it's not a lie, you have a far higher chance of winning. As against telling what you believe is your truth. Nobody cares about your truth. Nobody cares about your truth. The day you have that money, you take your truth with that money and do whatever you want to do with it. Go and build that right business and the way you want. But to get that money, you need to speak their version of the truth. Because the question they're trying to answer is, will this make money or not? And that is going to be intensely hard for all of you. Because as I said, you're not trained in this art for no fault of yours. So you have to dig deep into human psychology to understand how do people get influenced. Here's a recommendation. Pick up this book called Influence. Pick up this book called Influence. Also, by the same author, pick up the book called Persuasion. If there's any book that you need to read to understand the art of pitching, these two books will help you tremendously. Because they'll tell you how the human mind works. And it's fascinating how it is so different from how you might be thinking it works. Certainly when you walk into that room believing that your graph of revenue is the reason why you will get that money. There's so many beautiful graphs in this world. Beautiful, beautiful looking graphs. And nobody cares a shit about them. Including some of the meaningful things that you are working on. And it's only because it doesn't appeal to the audience that you're speaking to. Size that audience up, and that is when you have a sure shot of making it work. When you do that, and this is the last thing I'll say before we open it up for questions, I'd love to get your questions as well. Recognize that the ultimate business the investor is in is entering and exiting a business. So if they do enter your business, their goal is to one day exit your business. And that may not always be through the IPO or the grand outcome that we all look at in the newspapers. It more often than not happens behind the scenes, which is another funding round, another investor coming in, and another pitch, and another sizing up of the room, and another evaluation of what they're looking for. But that also means that when you go in trying to raise money for your startup, you're essentially committing to raising money forever. Ever and ever. There is no stopping. Don't mistake that you, only need X million dollars and then we'll be profitable. Nobody cares. Your investor doesn't want you to be profitable. It wants you to be valuable. Because that's how they make money. So in case you are valuable, they will want you to sell. And you will have to go and raise, whether you like it or not. Because they have a 7-year, usually funds have a 7-year life, extended by 3 years at best. So 7 to 10 years. Which means, depending on where in that fund life did you raise the money, they will need an exit to be given to the LPs who they raised their money from. And that has nothing to do with you. So if you raise the money in the 3rd year of the fund life, you have 4 to 7 years to give them an exit. After which, by law, they can drag you to an exit. And you can't do anything about it as a founder. It's called a drag along right, which is there in the document that you sign with your life. You give them the right to drag yourself at the end of the fund life. So you have no choice as a founder. You have just promised to continue raising money forever and ever. And as long as you're okay with that, brilliant. But if you're not, because most of us don't want to, we almost feel like, I'll go in, raise this money, be profitable, and then just build this company the nice, happy way. No, it's not how it works. Your investor loves you, but they love their job more, and their job is to exit you. And that has to happen, whether you like it or not. And a lot of founders, when I tell them that, we're like, bro, ये नहीं पता था मुझे ये नहीं करना है, मुझे कंपनी चलानी है, मुझे जेन्युइनली इस बिजनेस को खड़ा करके बड़ा करना है, मुझे हर 2 साल मार्केट में जाके पैसे नहीं रेज करने हैं. But you have no choice, because that is the implicit understanding you signed with the investor, whether you liked it or not. So in my startup course, in the first 15 minutes, it's not a pitch, by the way, this is not a pitch, so I'm not asking you to buy the startup course. It's available on ankurwariku.com. In the first 15 minutes, I have a full refund policy. That's again not a pitch. I'm just saying this to make a point. It has a full refund policy because why do I want to make money from somebody who didn't benefit from the course? And we have a few people asking for a refund. I always ask them what didn't work out for them. And they say the first 15 minutes. Because in the first 15 minutes, I have this intense monologue of why you should not become a founder. And I give 3 reasons to people why they should not ever start up. Or at least not start up right now. Reason number 1, you want to do it to make money. And I go, ha. तुम्हें अगर लगता है कि स्टार्टअप चलाकर तुम पैसे कमा लोगे तो तुम दुनिया के सबसे बड़े गधे हो. Because the predictability of you making money from a nice, happy corporate job is magnitude order bigger than your predictability of making money through a startup. Survivorship bias. हम सब न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते हैं, अरे लाखों करोड़ों ESOPs, founder is a unicorn founder, sitting on equity worth, blah, 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 blah. All of these are people who survived, which is less than 0.5%. You will never hear a story of the people who died. They are the ones who will most likely be you and you will be them for no fault of yours. It's just the odds that you're playing against. So don't think that startup is a great way to make money. You fools if you're thinking like that. Reason number 2, you want to start up because you hate your current life. And a lot of people do that. मैं छोड़ दूंगा, नौकरी छोड़ दूंगा, नहीं करना मुझे ये, नहीं रहना मुझे मैनेजर के तलवों के नीचे. I will rule my own destiny, get all of that. Wrong reason to do anything in life. Anything in life. If you hate your current life, just going towards someplace else is not going to fix your life. Fix what is wrong in your life. And if that is something that you don't recognize, then spend your time recognizing what it is, and then go ahead and make the decision of where you want to be, as against just jumping there. And third, biggest reason, particularly with this generation, I want to start up because everyone else is starting up. So living in perpetual FOMO. मेरे सारे बैचमेट स्टार्टअप कर रहे हैं, मैं यहाँ क्या कर रहा हूँ, नौकरी, हजारों लाखों रुपए कमा के. Why would I not give up my life and all of this money and my work-life balance and my relationships so that I can also have a card that says I'm CEO? It baffles me. So the first 15 minutes is this monologue of why you've picked up the startup course and the 3 reasons why you should not start up. And people go through that and like, आपने आंखें खोल दी, हमें स्टार्टअप नहीं करना है, प्लीज हमारे पैसे हमें वापस दे दो. मैं खुशी खुशी उनको दे देता हूँ. And then there is a 4th chapter on should you raise money or not. It is exactly the peak of another refund. Because I tell them, please पैसे मत उठाओ, मत उठाओ. And of course, I say it from a tech perspective. I understand this industry is very different. There are long gestation periods. There is a long holding cycle till you even hit the market. The customer selling cycle is long. All of that appreciated, even though I'm an illiterate. But irrespective, if you can build a business that runs on customers' money as against investors' money, that will always be the best business to build. Because that is when you know you have infinite runway. You don't have to raise money. And guess when is the best time to raise money? When people are chasing you and you don't need to pitch. Isn't that the best one? Isn't that the best day ever where you're sitting on your job, doing whatever you have to do, raking in the money because your customers love you, and then there's a ping from investor A. They're like, hey, I'm hearing good things about you in the market. Do you want to catch up? And you're like, no, busy, 3 months later. And then the investor, after 3 months, will follow up again. And why will they do that? Because they see X in you. What is X? Money. Money. That's it. They don't love you. They don't care about you. They don't think any different from you and anybody else. What they see in you is that you can make them money. And that's it. So they will chase you because that's their job. That's their 24/7 job. And you want to be in that spot. You want to be in that spot where investors are chasing you as against you chasing them. I fully understand and have been exactly in that spot where you're chasing the investors and you feel it's like a dead end, you feel frustrated. But there, what we had as a discussion on pitching will help. But the bigger discussion is, if you raise money, you're committing to raising money forever. And that's why the best time to raise money is when you raise it on your own terms. When you don't even need it. When someone's chasing you and willing to give you a value that you yourself will not attach to yourself, and you will like, okay, let's play that game. Because then the risk is entirely theirs, not yours. They're coming in and you can define it. You'll be like, I won't give you drag rights. I don't care about your fund life. If you are going to drag me, I have another investor who's saying no drag. And okay, we'll remove drag. I'll manage my LPs and blah, blah, blah. And all of this is possible now. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं लिखा हुआ है लक्ष्मण रेखा जैसे जो मिट नहीं सकता. Everything is negotiable, but it depends on how much they're convinced that you're going to make them money. And you want to be in that spot. Not everyone can be in that spot, which is why a better spot to be in, and that's just my limited argument, is build a business that's built on customer money as against investor money. Build a business which is supported by government grants, then somebody who will exit your business, and that will be the only time they will actually make money. Because think about it, you're entering a partnership with someone who will never ever make money till they actually exit your business. Would you ever enter a relationship like that? It's almost like, I'm going to marry someone, but I'll never ever be happy until I divorce. That's exactly the relationship. And all the time I'll keep convincing you, oh, you're the best partner ever, you can do it. Yes, you have a sustainable solution. I love it. I love coming back to you. It's like home. And at some point of time, after 7 years, I'm like, we need a divorce. But that's when I'll really be happy. That's exactly the relationship. As brutal as it sounds, that is the true relationship. And my job is to just make you aware. Not convince you that investors are bad. No, they're doing a massive service, because without that capital, a lot of the ecosystem that has gotten built in this country and worldwide would not have happened. But at the same time, because we don't get to hear the stories of everyone who died and went through that experience, it becomes immensely important that you recognize that side as well, so that you make an informed decision at the end of the cycle. My time's up. I'd love to have questions come my way. Do we have time or no?
We can take few questions.
All right, perfect.
We can limit to one.
All right, perfect. So it's 12:21. Let's have questions for 9 minutes and then we'll close. Is that fine? 12:30? Oh,
We have the session time.
one question. Okay, two? Perfect. 5 minutes is all I need. Yes, one question here and then one question here because. Okay, I don't have a mic for you. So can you shout out your answer or question?
You were speaking about how the investors may exit, would drag you to exit. But Hi.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Ankur. I'm a founder from Chennai. So it was an excellent speech, of course. I just have a small question. Speaking about how the the investors drag you to exit. Wouldn't there also be an option where the founders will buy back those shares? It's a question given the existence.
There will always be an option for you to buy back the shares, but number one, they will always have a right of refusal. It's called ROFR, right of first refusal. So the investor can always refuse an offer. Number two, where will you get the money to buy them from? It'll have to be from the company, unless you're rich yourself, in which case you shouldn't raise money in the first place. But the biggest challenge in the buyback is the company has not gotten that big to give the investor the kind of return or an exit that they were expecting. Because that means the company corpus or funds itself have become so big that they can buy back a potential investor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right. Yes, ma'am. Okay, there's a mic coming to you.
So, it's a very frank question. Feel free not to answer.
Please, of course. No question is wrong.
You remember I said, what is it for me?
Yes.
When you came to us, when you came to this audience, what was the process? And did you come with that mindset? Please feel not to answer. What is in for Ankur Warikoo? Did you think like that?
No, I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have showed up here because I have no business being at a biotech conference. I absolutely not. I was asked, and I gladly accepted because I love hanging out with founders. And my first measurement was trying to understand the audience. If all of you or most of you would have been like we're students, this conversation would have been a very different conversation. So I didn't come prepared.
What is your process like every time you go to speak? Because we obviously see you speaking such beautifully in so many events. What does the process go through? Like,
I just love what I'm doing. That is the process. Like, it's as simple as that. There's nothing else. I generally, I'm sorry I'm giving you a very... It's a completely useless answer because you can't do anything about it. But it is what it is and I can't lie. It's genuinely, I love being here and trying to break down something which is complex to something that is simple, digestible, and just leave people with a little more than what they knew of. And I wish there was more conversation around what does investing really mean as against having a show like Shark Tank where we're just celebrating funding, not recognizing what happens once the funding is raised for perpetuity for that startup. Because most of them should not be raising money ever. Because a shop is not an investor-friendly business to make. A handicrafts business, with all due respect, is not an investor-friendly business. It will never get to a size and scale where somebody who's put in the money will get multiples over it. It's a brilliant business to build. I would build that for my own, but I certainly would not raise money. But if we're living in a time where funding is the one that's celebrated a lot more than the actual size of the business, then it almost becomes, I don't say my responsibility because who am I? I just want to make that happen as much as I can. And that's why this conversation. And I rarely get this pitching, investing wala theme. Because more people like growth mindset ke bare mein baat kar lo. Okay, ye lo. I'm a circus man. I can just offer whatever is that. All right, time's up. Because
We'll have
yes,
to cut short with the
perfect,
question
great.
answers.
Thank you so much. All the best. I am. I'll leave you with my coordinates. I am available on email. That's the best way to get in touch with me. My last name, Wariko, WARIKOO, @gmail.com. Very easy to remember. I was one of the early adopters of Gmail, and that's why Wariko @gmail.com. And please drop in an email. I'll be more than happy to respond. And I do check all my emails.
I would request Mr. Anku to click a selfie with the audience.
Yes, absolutely. And please don't add me on LinkedIn. I have maxed out, so I can't accept any connection requests, and certainly not on Facebook. All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. You wanna make some signs or something because photographer the audio nahi aayega. But we certainly wanna get in there. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
We can squeeze in the people on the edges. We can
And now
squeeze
let's
in.
take a video so that everyone gets covered.
Yeah, Karan is there from the team. He
And
can capture
against
the
your
video.
natural personality, because all of you are scientists, very well-mannered, cultured people, shout. Okay, so when I say 1, 2, 3, this becomes a hooligan that we all were in school and college before the life of us grew away. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go! Okay, thank you so much.
अच्छा